Hello and welcome to another After Maths episode of the Primary Maths Podcast, the show where we talk all things primary maths. With me, John Cripwell.
And with me, Becky Brown.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Becky. How are you? Becky, you're looking slightly stressed. Why would you be looking slightly stressed?
Well, John, I think since leaving teaching, at the end of teaching, when you get to that end of term and you've got all these things you need to squeeze in the last few days, well, that is what my life at Twinkle has been like the last couple of days, because I'm off on holiday today, in fact, this afternoon.
Woo!
So, yeah, it's just been getting all the loose ends tied up and getting ready to go.
I think that is a slight difference from teaching to other jobs that I've found since coming out of the classroom most of the time. Is ordinarily, I don't think in teaching, I would not have planned to leave, certainly on a holiday that involved going abroad, the day that I finished teaching. Like that just, you break up on the Friday and I've got a flight at 6 o'clock from the airport. I know maybe some people do that, but I think very few people do that. I think that's, I'm not even sure I would do that, Becky, in this job. I feel like I need a whole day to think about leaving to go to the airport. But you are literally going to leave this recording, aren't you? And then jet off, which is very, very celeb chic.
Yeah, I don't think it was a good idea either. I feel like I should have taken the day off, but I don't know. I think also when you're teaching, of course, you have to factor in the fact that you're going to be probably ill for the first week of the holiday.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
So I don't have that to think about. I mean, in some ways, I haven't had time to really worry about anything. So in some ways, it's like, yeah, I'll shut down my computer, I'll finish my packing, and off I'll go.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah. And of course, your husband is a teacher, so clearly he's had all the time in the world to get everything ready for you while you've been busy working. So well done. That's I'm sure that's worked out absolutely perfectly for you.
Yeah, they've of course also been very helpful.
Absolutely, yes. I can imagine. Well, I hope when you get back, you will have lots of American maths of life for us, and probably, without giving too much away about your holiday plans, probably lots of maths around queuing, which we are going to touch on at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, which queues you should join, why you should or should not choose to switch queues and things. Because today we are thinking all about the maths around getting away, aren't we, Becky?
We are, yes. Yes, John. I'm going to think about queuing and different routes and all things like that. All to do with getting away, even if you're
just to be clear, this is not a normal episode of the Primary Maths Podcast. It's a summer special. So ordinarily we do actually talk about primary maths and teaching and things. But for these summer specials, we have been thinking a little bit more outside of the box and just trying to find quite interesting things that are loosely based in maths. I mean, life. Maths is life, to quote Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso, or to misquote him anyway. Maths is life, and so maths is everywhere, and therefore we can almost talk about anything. And so it made sense to talk about holidays a little bit, didn't it? Yeah. So, Becky, let's start then with, what does the best route mean to you? If you're planning to go somewhere, what are you factoring in when you're thinking about the best route?
Okay, so it sort of depends how I'm getting there. But if I was driving,
let's say driving, and let's say you're using a. Does anybody have sat navs anymore? I mean, I know they're built into cars and things, but most people, I think, use some variation of a map app, don't they? Apple Maps, Google Maps, Waze.
I would love to know if there is anybody out there who's still using an actual map.
An actual map, yeah.
Because
to be fair, we still have an actual map in the car. It is probably 10 years out of date now, I would imagine. But I quite like throwing it at the kids sometimes and saying, figure out where we are and where we're going to. Because, I just feel it's a life skill. But, maybe that's just me. I wouldn't use one to plan a route anymore. Not an A to Z type of map. Definitely not.
I do remember once going up to Alton Towers one year using a map, and there was a road on there that hadn't been built yet or something. It was brand new map, but the road wasn't actually ready, which caused all sorts of issues. Obviously you wouldn't have that today, but I do love a map. I love maps generally, but same as you, I wouldn't use one to plan my route now. I would use an app.
I don't know, sometimes you still get like Google Maps or whatever. You come across Google Maps thinks that there is a road still there and there isn't a road still there, or that there's a new road, or suddenly there's an island that wasn't there. And I don't know, maybe this is a bad admission from me, but I trust these apps so implicitly now that I give very, very little thought to actually how I'm going to get from A to B. I just put the details in, the postcode or where I'm going, into the app, and I trust that it's going to get me there. And I think very little about where I am, where I'm going next, occasionally to the point where I totally miss the turning, because I don't like to. I like to have music and stuff on in the car. I don't like to listen to the sat nav.
Oh, no.
So I'm just driving along on autopilot. And so occasionally, when you come across these things where they've suddenly built a new road overnight out of nowhere, and the map hasn't updated yet, it can really throw you, can't it? And it can throw the app as well. But anyway, we were saying, if you were driving, let me give you an example. You're driving to the coast. No, you live on the coast. I'm driving to the coast.
Yeah.
I'm driving to the coast. I live nowhere near the coast. And Google Maps offers me 3 routes, let's say 132 miles, and that takes 2 hours and let's make sure I'm driving at the right speed here. 2 hours and 35 minutes, or 118 miles, 2 hours and 47 minutes, or 145 miles, but it's only going to take 2 hours and 30 minutes, but you have to pay £12 of toll charges. Which one is the best route out of those? The 132 miles, 2 hours 35, 118 miles, so not as far, but it's going to take you longer, 2 hours 47, or furthest distance, 145 miles, but it's quicker, and you pay £12 of tolls. What would you go for personally?
Personally, I would probably go for the quickest one.
The quickest one, even though you've got to pay, and you've got to drive further.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I think about it as distance. I think it, although obviously it is, and it will end up costing more for that reason as well.
It's going to cost you more in tolls, isn't it? Yeah. And it's going to cost you more in fuel and wear and tear on the car. And it might not be the most scenic.
No, well, that I do consider that if there was multiple routes, and let's say they were fairly similar, and one was going through a really built up area, unless it was somewhere that I wanted to see, I would definitely avoid that one. I would definitely go around the outside. I don't really want to.
Let's be honest though. Do you actually look at the route that the app's taking you before you do it, or are you like me and you just trust it and you just go, yeah, fine, let's go?
And sometimes, of course, it flashes up and says to you, if you change route now, you're going to save 12 minutes. And again, I trust it. Yeah.
Always. Yes. Why are you asking me? If you've got a quicker way,
take me there.
I know some people say that it's the journey, not the destination. But for me, driving, it's always the destination. Yeah. The journey I'm happy to skip, to be honest. Because, I'm bored of driving, particularly on motorways. But I suppose the point that I'm making there is that there are lots of factors to take into account, and people will make different decisions, won't they? If you are somebody who's particularly concerned about the environment, you might want to take the shortest route, even though maybe it's going to take longer. Or maybe it's the other way around, because the longer you spend in the car, the worse it is for the environment. I don't actually know, Becky. We need to find that out. If anybody knows, primarymathspodcast@twinkle.co.uk. Please let us know.
It's a funny one, and it's like you say, we're very trusting of the technology. I was reading a story about an artist in Berlin. It was a little bit old now, but they wanted to try to cheat the sat nav, because of course it's all done on your phone, isn't it? And how fast your phones are going and so on. So they did an experiment where they had this little cart, like I'm just picturing like a little red cart from 80s American film. It was with 99
big wheels on the carts.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
99 smartphones, and then they walked, pulling this cart with all the phones in it, through some of the main streets in Berlin.
It's really annoying that it's 99 smartphones. I feel this is an autistic choice.
Yeah.
But I like round numbers.
Yeah, me too. I would not have done 99. Although it worked for red balloons. So who are we
True.
to argue?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and so the reporting, because obviously there was this huge amount of phones in the same distance going slower, it went back to the servers and it showed that there was a traffic jam, which of course then would affect other people, because that is something I would avoid. If it comes up and there's a bit of red and I've got an option to go around it, I will. But I'm trusting that it's there. Of course, it might just be somebody with a red cart pulling some phones along.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to think that every time now. When it says that in the future, I'm just, is it really a traffic jam though, or is it just an artist doing some art?
Yeah.
So just to be clear then, it was just the mere number of phones travelling in at a slow speed along this particular road.
Yeah.
I'm
Plus,
guessing there were other phones that were travelling along this road though that were going at her. That must have been confusing
yeah.
but maybe it was just the volume of phones, as you say, that are moving at that slow pace.
Yeah. And I'm assuming they weren't actually in the road. If it's described it as a busy thoroughfare in Berlin. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out a bit more. But I thought that was
Maybe he did actually cause a traffic jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just walking along in the road. But quite
doing
interesting
art. Yeah.
to think that actually it's not always going to be telling us the truth, is it?
Well, I did look into how Google Maps in particular plans journeys and estimates the time.
Okay.
And I don't know about you, Becky, but I always see that time as a target to beat. So, if it says it's going to take me 2 hours and 12 minutes, I'm like, right, even if I have to stop, I need to, sticking within the speed limit, of course, I need to make sure that I'm there in less than 2 hours and 12 minutes, because that's a target to beat, not an estimation. However, Google would describe it as an estimate. And it takes into account lots of data actually for this. So first one is historical patterns. So it's learnt what happens typically, and not just what happens on a typical day, but also thinking about Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays as being discrete days and discrete times during those days, because obviously a Sunday is going to look very different to, for instance, a Friday. But also time of year as well. So it looks at specific dates in history, and it's been going long enough now that it can take those things into account as well. So we know, for instance, during the summer months, if you're going to try and get down past Bristol, it's going to be very, very busy around there, because everybody's heading down to the southwest, aren't they, for holidays and things. So it takes that into account. It also takes into account live traffic conditions. So there's your man with the small red cart and an infuriating number of phones moving very slowly. And then it also uses machine learning to predict how the situation is likely to change during the journey. So it will take into account the fact that you're not actually at the place that it's thinking about now. You're going to be at that place in an hour's time or an hour and a half's time or whatever. So when you think about it, it's quite a complex series of calculations that it has to do to figure out how long it's going to take. And it also thinks about your driving style as well, apparently, in the latest updates. So if you are somebody who typically drives at the speed limit, then it will take that into account. If you typically drive 10 miles an hour below the speed limit, like my father-in-law, for instance, then it will take that into account as well. So it knows, yeah, exactly. It's, it's interesting. And they're beginning to add in pre-planned events as well. So, if you are going past Wembley, for instance, or going down the M1 on a day when there's a cup final at Wembley or something, it will take those planned events into account as well. So, there's a lot to it, which you don't get if you just use an old AA A to Z, map, I guess.
Not as fun though, maybe.
No. But how does this relate to maths? So we're 15 minutes in. I mean, we have, to be fair, we've talked about data and predictions and time, and we know all those things are very mathematical because maths is life, and all those things are in there. However, there is a famous famous puzzle and story linking the mathematician Euler to Google Maps. And it is about some bridges, 7 bridges in Königsberg. Have you heard of this before, Becky?
I have heard of this before. I love this problem. It's one of my favourites, actually.
Did you come across this when you were doing working on problem solving resources and things?
Because one of the biggest things with problem solving, I think we sometimes forget to do this, is that people should come across problems that are impossible or seemingly impossible or don't have an obvious answer or an answer at all, because that's part of problem solving, isn't it? It's because it's then how you change that problem maybe to make it possible. That's the fun bit, in my opinion. Maybe not everybody's, but yeah, I love the 7 bridges. Do you know the story? Do you want to tell the story behind the problem?
Yeah, I can tell the story. So 18th century Königsberg, it was divided. Well, it was sort of bisected by the river Pregel, 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 anyway. And there were 2 islands and the riverbanks, which were connected by 7 bridges. And that number 7 is important in the story. And I don't think there was a lot going on in 18th century Königsberg, because apparently multiple people, according to the story, asked whether it was possible to take a walk that crossed every bridge exactly once. As I say, this is before TV, podcasts, YouTube. People had to find things to do. So they puzzled over this. You didn't have to necessarily start and finish at the same place. The challenge was simply to use every bridge once. Is that how you understood the problem, Becky?
Yeah, absolutely. Very similar to those can you draw this picture without taking your pencil off the paper type problems, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So an inefficient method might be to draw the town, draw all the bridges on and things, and keep trying different routes and see whether you could do it. What's the problem with what do you reckon the benefits and maybe drawbacks of that approach might be?
So representing
It's nearly holidays, Becky. It's nearly your holiday, don't worry. You're almost there.
And this is a perfect example of how you can simplify quite a complicated idea by drawing it. Definitely. Yeah. I would argue that you don't need to make it look like bridges. I think children often do think you do, don't they? They would draw the bridges and the little people and things, but it's really, at its basic note, it's like little nodes, isn't it, of the places that
exactly that. Yeah. So this is what Euler did. He represented the town. Each land area was a point, and each bridge was a line, just a simple line. And effectively, he created a graph, really, which represented the town and the bridges. And he considered how many bridges met at each land area, because that was important as well. And what he found was that it was impossible, actually, to do this. But the important thing was that he proved that it was impossible, because before people hadn't found a way, but they still thought that there might be a way. And he found that it was impossible, because he said, I'm just going to read this a little bit here. Whenever you enter an intermediate land area across one bridge, so somewhere that's not necessarily connected, across one bridge, you normally need another bridge to leave, and therefore bridges need to occur in pairs, and obviously 7. There's an uneven number of bridges there. So a successful route can have no vertices of an odd degree if it starts and finishes in the same place, and exactly 2 vertices, points, corners, if it starts and finishes in different places. And the Königsberg graph had 4 odd vertices, and therefore you couldn't basically use all 7 bridges exactly once.
Yeah.
So yeah, a slightly complicated explanation of why you can't do it, but just thinking about it from a problem-solving point of view, Becky, how might you use this sort of problem with a class, do you think?
Well, I have done this. I think it's probably generally done more with secondary, but I know I've done it with year 6, probably post-SATs before. And I think it's about making sure that you're finding those patterns. And the important thing here is odd and even, isn't it? Which is a very basic concept. Does each place, node, if you like, have an odd number of paths or an even number of paths? And then you can think about it. I mean, you could even take it down to less to start with. That would be a good way into the problem. And then make it bigger and work out. And one of the things which I love doing is extending it a bit. So thinking, well, what could we add into the problem so that it is possible? And of course, that's about making sure if you're starting and ending in a different place, you're only allowed 2 places with an odd number of paths, because otherwise you can't go in and out again. But again, it's hard for us to do it here because we're just talking, and you would never do that, would you, when you were solving a problem?
No, absolutely not. No. But just thinking about the skills involved in doing it, though, because it doesn't necessarily feel like a maths lesson.
No.
But, excuse me. But in terms of the skills involved in it, there's a lot of mathematical thinking actually that takes place in it. You might have working systematically, representations. You might have some trial and error.
Yep.
You might be. It certainly requires some elements of resilience and things. Just working systematically through it, but then also spotting a pattern and thinking, how is that going to help me to understand this on maybe a larger scale or in a different way. So it definitely lends itself to a maths lesson, I think, when we're thinking about problem solving. And this might be a good opportunity, Becky, actually just to mention the problem solving resources that we've got, because they are exciting and they do involve things like this.
And actually, in that little bit there, Jon, I think you've mentioned all of the strategies that we have been working on creating resources to explicitly teach. So I think you mentioned working systematically, spotting patterns, using models. We've got changing the process. So you might go backwards, and that would definitely lend itself to this. Simplifying the problem, relating it in a different way, bit of trial and improvement. And this problem is the perfect example of why it's really important to teach those strategies, which is what our resources aim to do. And we do teach them separately with the knowledge and understanding that actually in real life, you're probably taking more than one, and sometimes all of them in this case, to apply to a given problem. So that's our new problem solving resources, and they're not all live yet. We've got some coming in the autumn term too, but eventually there's 6 units covering all of those things, and this would be a perfect application task, wouldn't it, to try which strategy did you use and why, because that's the really important thing.
Thinking that metacognitive side of it. And I hope listeners, viewers, if you're on YouTube, don't mind. We don't do a lot of plugging of resources on this show. That's not really what we're about. But I genuinely think that the problem-solving resources that we've got coming are really super useful and will be really useful for teachers, particularly thinking about how can we develop problem-solving skills, because it's really, really hard to teach effectively. And we know it is, and that's why we created this. And anybody who is a Twinkle subscriber can go and see those and download them and try them out. So, little plug, I hope you don't mind, but genuinely, I think it's worth going and having a look at. Right, we did mention right at the start, Becky, queuing. I'm going to touch on this quickly because I am the sort of person who will join a queue and immediately start looking at the other queues and noticing that they seem to be moving much faster than the queue that I joined. Are you the sort of person who looks at all? I mean, you are going to be doing some queuing over the next however many days, starting later probably at an airport. Are you the sort of person that judges a queue before you decide which one to join, or do you just rock up to the nearest one and just take a chance?
Do judge a queue, and I do probably change queues, which I don't think you're
do
supposed
you to. Oh, you're a queue changer, not a queue jumper. I'd never accuse you of that. But you are a queue changer. So the usual strategy, Becky, and it sounds like you fall into this camp, and so do I to an extent. You look at all the available queues, you join the shortest one, usually, which makes sense. You immediately notice that every other queue is moving faster. You change the queue, and then you watch the person who was behind you in the previous queue get to the front before you do. That's typically how it goes. And there are lots of factors at work here. It's not just pure maths, I suppose, because if it was, you'd just go to the shortest queue, wouldn't you? but it does typically work out like in the way that I've just described. That's the general approach. And the other thing you have to take into account, by the way, in certain supermarkets is that if queues get too long, they will open another till. And if you can be ready for that, if you can watch the signs of that about to happen, you can get to the front of the queue for the new till opening. Just quick tip for you there. But the things that you have to take into account, if you are going on holiday, if you are going to be joining an airport queue or a theme park queue or supermarket queues this summer, you need to take into account lots of different factors. It isn't a simple linear equation about the length of the queue. So, different service speeds, complicated transactions. I'm not saying it's all elderly people, but something to bear in mind sometimes.
Yeah.
How many, it might look like a big queue, but it might be actually a family that are all there together that just take up a lot of space. And they're actually just one transaction. So worth thinking about that. The number of sort of till points at the end of that particular queue, less so at a supermarket, but you might think about that at theme parks or bars and things. Apparently, this is really weird. People have started queuing at bars in pubs and things now, rather than just going up to the bar.
What? Because
how do you feel about that?
I'm not happy about that.
No, I'm not happy about that either. That is not how bars work.
No.
Well, I know we are very good at queuing in this country being the UK, but you don't queue at a bar. You go to the bar and you find your space at the bar, and then you waive some form of payment at the bartender until they serve you. That's how you do it. That's how it works. But yeah, very, very odd. So all those things need to be taken into account and factored in. But the best way to do this, if there are multiple people in your group, is to send people to different queues.
Yes, I have done that before.
Of course you have. Of course you have. Oh gosh, everybody look out for Becky when she's queuing. So yeah, send people to different queues and then join that one with them if you're allowed to. If that isn't going to, if that's not going to compromise some queue jumping laws, bylaws. Yeah, you don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. No, I don't mind queuing. I feel like I'm quite a good queuer. I can amuse myself, and generally if I'm with other people, we make games up and things. I'm about to go to Orlando, so I'm about to be doing a lot of queuing, but in a group of people. I think that's different than if you're by yourself, because if you're by yourself, it's boring, isn't it?
Also, the great thing about Disney and other theme parks like that in America is that they do at least tend to put things in the queue to try and make it slightly more interesting. You know, the queues tend to be themed and things as well. There's entertainment along the way. I feel like British theme parks are not quite as good at doing that. If any British theme parks are listening and think that you do that brilliantly and you'd like us to come along and see how well you do that, do feel free to send us any free tickets to primarymathspodcast@twinkle.co.uk. Happily do a review for you. But I think that can definitely add to it as well. The other thing, of course, I was in the supermarket the other day looking at the queues, trying to work out which ones to join, obviously, taking into account all those factors that I've already mentioned. The number of people that just are just looking at their phones, even when they're queuing with other people, they're just staring at their phones. And that's something that's definitely changed over the last 20 years or so, isn't it? What did we do in queues before phones came along?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it if I was with other people. I think my children would, and I'd probably get told off for it. But if I was by myself, I think it's a natural thing that if you're by yourself...
Yeah, you take your phone out and you have a look at... Yeah. It's an opportunity. Sometimes you tell yourself it's an opportunity to, get ahead and catch up a little bit. I wonder whether the sales, the sweets and things that they put near the till, I wonder if whether our phone use has diminished or affected the sales of those things by the till, whether we don't notice them as much anymore as we used to. Be interesting to find out. Yeah. I mean, I say interesting. I'd like to know, but that's probably as far as it needs to go. Right. thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. If you have any ideas for something you'd like us to talk about on our summer specials, do get in touch. You can find us on any of the social platforms, or you can email us at primarymathspodcast@twinkle.co.uk. Normal service will be resumed in the autumn term. When I'm talking about normal service, we typically have a interview episode on a Tuesday during term time and an aftermath episode, which is a bit more like this, but slightly more relevant to actually teaching primary maths, on a Friday. But we'll be back next week, won't we, Becky?
We will.
You'll be joining us from sunny Orlando, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
We will see you then.
See you next time. Bye, John.
Thank you. Take care, Becky. Have a good one. See ya. Bye.